My name is Tyler Reed, and until 3 months ago, I was just another face in the unemployment line. At 32, with a dishonorable discharge from the Army and a resume full of gaps, finding work wasn't easy. The apartment I shared with my sister Maya was slipping away, rent-due notices piling up by the door like fallen leaves. Maya tried her best to cover for both of us while I searched for work. Her nursing job at County Hospital barely paid enough for one person, let alone two. Every night she came home with dark circles under her eyes, but never complained. Just asked if I'd had any luck finding a job, and every night I'd shake my head and promise tomorrow would be different. Then Maya got sick. The doctors called it an aggressive autoimmune response, but all I knew was that my sister, my only family, couldn't work anymore. The medical bills started to stack up alongside the rent notices. I took any odd job I could find, washing dishes, delivering packages, night shifts at gas stations. None paid enough. I was sorting through another batch of rejection emails when I saw it, a listing for a night security guard at All Saints Church. The pay was surprisingly good, almost twice what other security jobs offered. The catch? The shift was from midnight to 6 a.m., and the church only opened during those hours. Strange, but beggars can't be choosers. The interview was quick. Reverend Walsh, a tall man with a face lined by years but eyes that seemed much older, barely looked at my resume. Instead, he studied my face like he was memorizing it. He asked only one question. "Can you follow rules without asking why?" I said yes, of course. We both knew it was a lie, but he hired me anyway. He handed me a sealed envelope. Inside are the rules. Memorize them before your first shift. Do not share them with anyone. Do not lose this paper. Burn it after you've committed everything to memory. That night, I opened the envelope in my kitchen while Maya slept. The rules were typed on thick paper that felt oddly warm to the touch. As I read, the pit in my stomach grew. These weren't normal security protocols, not even close. But the first paycheck would cover Maya's medicine for the month, and that's all that mattered. I started my first shift at All Saints a week ago. Now I understand why the pay is so good, and why the last 3 guards quit, or disappeared, as Reverend Walsh casually mentioned during my second night. I should quit too. Anyone sane would. But Maya's getting worse, and the specialist costs more than we can afford. So I'll keep coming back, night after night, to this church that only opens after midnight. I'll keep following the rules, and I'll keep pretending I don't see what happens when someone breaks them. The church looks normal during the day. I've driven past it dozens of times. Just another brick building with a modest steeple and stained glass windows depicting saints whose names I don't know. But at night, as the clock ticks toward midnight, something about All Saints changes. Not in any way I can point to, nothing obvious. It's more like the building itself is waking up. Tonight marks my 7th shift. I park my car across the street at 11:45 p.m. Rule 1, never arrive early, never arrive late. Exactly 15 minutes before midnight, no more, no less. From my glove compartment, I take out the items Reverend Walsh gave me. A silver key that feels too heavy for its size, a small cloth bag of salt, and a badge made of some dull metal I can't identify. The badge has my name engraved on one side and symbols I don't recognize on the other. Rule 2. Wear the badge at all times, symbols facing outward. Never touch it with your bare hands after entering. I slip on thin cotton gloves and pin the badge to my jacket, making sure the symbols face out. The night air is cool as I cross the street, gravel crunching under my boots. The church appears empty, all windows dark. As always, I stand exactly 10 feet from the main entrance and wait. At precisely midnight, the heavy wooden doors swing open. No one pushes them. They just open. Reverend Walsh stands in the doorway, his tall figure outlined against the dim light behind him. "Good evening, Tyler," he says, his voice carrying across the empty churchyard. "Any trouble since yesterday?" "No, Reverend," I reply, the required response. Rule 3. When anyone calls your name other than Reverend Walsh, do not respond, do not turn, do not acknowledge in any way. Reverend Walsh nods and steps aside. Then enter and take your post. Tonight is a regular service. I'm learning there's nothing regular about any service at All Saints, but I don't say this. Instead, I walk through the doorway, careful not to brush against the frame. Once inside, Reverend Walsh closes the doors and leads me through the main sanctuary. During the day, I imagine this space looks like any church. Pews arranged in neat rows, an altar at the front, maybe some candles. But at night, the pews form concentric circles around a central point marked by a tile different from the rest. The altar is positioned at what I think is the north end of the room, covered with cloth that absorbs light rather than reflects it. Take your position, Reverend Walsh says, pointing to a small platform to the right of the altar. This is where I'll stand for the next 6 hours, watching the congregation enter and follow their own set of rules I'm not privy to. My job is simple on paper. Observe, never interfere unless specific conditions are met, and follow my rules. Rule 4. If the tile at the center changes color, use the salt. Form a circle around yourself, and do not leave it until Reverend Walsh gives permission. Rule 5. Leave before the first light of dawn touches the church. Never look back once outside. At 12:30 a.m., the congregation begins to arrive. They enter one by one, each pausing at the doorway to whisper something to Reverend Walsh. He nods at each person, and they proceed to the circular pews. I count silently, making tally marks on a small notepad. The people look ordinary enough. Men and women of various ages, dressed in regular clothes, not robes or anything else you might expect from a midnight cult. But there's something about their movements, too uniform, too. I catch myself before thinking one of the forbidden words. I need this job. By 1 a.m., 27 people have entered. Reverend Walsh approaches my platform. Count? He asks. 27, I respond. Correct. He seems pleased, which is better than the alternative. Last night I counted wrong, said 31 when there were 30. His disappointment felt physical, like cold water down my spine. He made me recount, pointing to each person until I saw my error. I won't make that mistake again. The service begins with Reverend Walsh standing at the central tile. He speaks in a language I don't recognize, not Latin or any other church language I've heard. The congregation responds in kind, their voices creating a sound that makes my teeth ache. I focus on my breathing, on the weight of the badge against my chest. The first night I nearly passed out during this part. Now I know to brace myself. At 2:17 a.m., something changes. A hush falls over the congregation. Reverend Walsh steps back from the central tile, and a member of the congregation approaches, an older woman with silver hair twisted into a tight bun. The tile remains its normal color, so I stay still. The woman kneels at the center, places both hands on the tile, and begins to speak. Her voice sounds different from the others, deeper, with an echo that doesn't match the acoustics of the room. As she speaks, the air grows colder. My breath forms small clouds, though no one else's does. I count the congregation again, a nervous habit now. Still 27. Good. The woman stands, her message delivered. Reverend Walsh nods and turns to face the congregation. Tonight we welcome a visitor, he announces in English. As is our custom, we offer a question. This is new. My fingers tighten around the cloth bag of salt in my pocket. The main doors open again, though I didn't hear anyone knock. A figure stands in the doorway, tall, dressed in a dark suit that looks expensive. From my position, I can't make out their face clearly. Enter and be known, Reverend Walsh says. The visitor steps inside. The doors close behind them with a sound like a sigh. As they walk toward the center, I notice that their footsteps make no sound against the stone floor. My skin prickles with warning. The visitor reaches the center and stands on the tile. In the dim light, I can see their face now. Perfectly average, the kind you'd forget minutes after seeing. But their eyes. I look away quickly. "Ask your question," Reverend Walsh says to the visitor. The visitor smiles. "I seek the one who carries debt beyond money." The congregation stirs, whispering to each other. Reverend Walsh raises his hand, and they fall silent. "We acknowledge your question. The answer will come when due." The visitor nods and turns, scanning the room. Their gaze passes over me, and it takes all my willpower not to flinch. For a brief moment, I think they're going to approach me, and my hand closes around the badge. Instead, they point to a young man in the second circle of pews. "You." The young man stands, trembling visibly. I don't." "Bring him forward," Reverend Walsh commands, and 2 congregation members escort the young man to the central tile. What happens next makes me bite my tongue so hard I taste blood. The visitor places both hands on the young man's face, gently, almost tenderly. Then they begin to speak in his ear, too quietly for anyone else to hear. The young man's expression changes from fear to relief to something like joy. When the visitor removes their hands, the young man's face is wet with tears, but he's smiling. "Thank you," he whispers. "It's gone now." The visitor nods, then turns to Reverend Walsh. "Our business is concluded." Reverend Walsh bows slightly. "Until the appointed time." The visitor leaves the same way they came, the doors opening and closing on their own. Once they're gone, the congregation releases a collective breath. The service continues as if nothing unusual happened. The young man returns to his seat, still smiling, occasionally touching his face where the visitor's hands had been. At 3 a.m., Reverend Walsh announces a recess. The congregation files out to a room behind the altar, a room I'm forbidden from entering. Left alone in the sanctuary, I take the opportunity to stretch my legs without leaving my platform. My back aches from standing still for so long. I check my phone out of habit, though I know it won't work in here. No signal, and the battery drains to nothing within minutes, no matter how fully charged it was when I arrived. "Tyler," I freeze. Someone has called my name, but it wasn't Reverend Walsh. Rule 3 kicks in immediately. Do not respond, do not turn, do not acknowledge. "Tyler, I know you can hear me." The voice is coming from my left, near the main entrance. It sounds like, "Maya?" "No, that's impossible. Maya is at home, in bed, hopefully sleeping through the night without pain for once." "Your sister needs you, Tyler." "She's getting worse." My heart pounds, but I focus on the altar ahead, refusing to turn. This has happened before, not with Maya's voice, but with my mother's, who died years ago. It's a test. It has to be. "Look at me, Tyler, just for a moment." I clench my jaw and recite Rule 3 in my head like a mantra. The voice that sounds like Maya sighs. "Have it your way. But remember, when she's gone, you chose this place over her." The words hit like a physical blow, but I maintain my position. Eventually, the voice falls silent. When the congregation files back in at 3:30 a.m., I do another count. 27. All present. Reverend Walsh gives me an approving nod as he passes my platform. Did he know about the test? Was it his doing? His face reveals nothing. The remainder of the service passes without incident. Prayers in that strange language. Moments of silence that stretch too long. And finally, at 5:45 a.m., the closing rites. Reverend Walsh stands at the center tile once more. "We have been acknowledged. We have been heard. We have kept our covenant for another night." "We have been heard," the congregation echoes. The covenant stands. One by one, they file out, each nodding to Reverend Walsh as they pass. I count again. 27 leaving. No one left behind, no extras added. A successful night, by their standards. As the last member leaves, Reverend Walsh approaches my platform. "You did well tonight, Tyler, especially with the voice." So he did know. "Thank you, Reverend. You're learning quickly, better than your predecessors." He studies my face. "How is your sister?" The question catches me off guard. I've never mentioned Maya to him. "She's managing, Reverend." "I see." He reaches into his pocket and hands me an envelope. "Your payment for the week. There's a bonus included." I take the envelope, feeling its unexpected weight. "Thank you." "Tomorrow night will be different," he says, his eyes holding mine. "A special service. Be particularly mindful of Rule 4. My stomach tightens with dread, but I nod. "I'll be prepared." "Good. You may leave now. Remember Rule 5. Reverend Walsh smiles, the expression not quite reaching his eyes. "Until tomorrow night, Tyler." I tuck the envelope into my jacket pocket and walk toward the exit, removing my badge as I go. The doors open for me, and I step out into the pre-dawn darkness. The church grounds are silent, empty. My car sits where I left it, across the street. As I walk away, every instinct screams for me to look back, to see what the church becomes as night surrenders today. But I keep my eyes forward, remembering what happened to the guard before me who broke that rule. Reverend Walsh didn't specify what happened to them, but the way he described finding their uniform empty on the church steps told me enough. I reach my car, climb in, and drive away, the envelope heavy in my pocket. Tonight I'll be able to pay another installment on Maya's treatment. Tonight she might sleep a little easier. And tomorrow I'll return to All Saints for the special service, whatever that means. Because even with all the rules, all the strange occurrences, all the dread that fills me when those doors open at midnight, this job is keeping my sister alive. For that, I can face whatever waits for me in that church. I have to. I didn't sleep well after last night's shift. Maya was awake when I got home, pain keeping her from rest. I gave her the medicine and sat with her until she dozed off around noon. The envelope from Reverend Walsh contained more money than expected, enough to cover next month's treatment too. As I counted the bills, something fell out. A small stone, smooth and black, warm to the touch. No note, no explanation. I nearly threw it away, but some instinct made me pocket it instead. After a few hours of fitful sleep, I woke to check on Maya. She looked better today, some color back in her cheeks. The new medicine must be working. I didn't tell her about the church or the rules. She thinks I'm working regular security at an office building. Better that way. As evening approaches, I prepare for my shift. The special service Reverend Walsh mentioned has me on edge. I check my supplies twice. Badge, salt, gloves. I add a small flashlight, though I've never needed one inside the church. It always has that dim light that seems to come from nowhere and everywhere. The stone from the envelope sits on my bedside table. On impulse, I pocket that too. I arrive at All Saints at 11:45 p.m. exactly. The church looks different tonight. I can't say how, but something about the building feels more alert. I shake off the thought and cross the street, taking my position 10 feet from the main entrance. The doors open at midnight, but Reverend Walsh isn't there. Instead, a woman stands in the doorway, tall, pale, with white hair cut close to her scalp. I've seen her in the congregation, always in the innermost circle of pews. "Tyler Reed," she says, her voice like dry leaves. "Enter and take your post." I hesitate. This breaks routine, and routine seems important at All Saints. But Rule 1 says nothing about who must greet me, only when I must arrive. "Where is Reverend Walsh?" I ask. "Preparing," she replies, offering nothing more. "The special service requires his full attention. I am Deacon Norris. I will guide you tonight." I enter, keeping my distance from her as I pass. Inside, the church looks transformed. The circular pews are gone, replaced by a single row of chairs along the walls. The central tile glows faintly, not changing color, but pulsing with inner light. "What kind of service is this?" I ask, fingering the salt bag in my pocket. Deacon Norris smiles thinly. "A communion, with a visitor who has shown particular interest in our congregation. And in you." My stomach drops. "In me?" "Your post is there." She points to my usual platform. "The rules remain the same, though tonight you may find Rule 4 particularly relevant. If the tile changes color, use the salt. Form a circle around yourself, and do not leave it until Reverend Walsh gives permission." I take my position, feeling exposed without the congregation to direct attention away from me. The church is empty except for Deacon Norris, who takes a seat near the door. "When will the others arrive?" I ask. "There are no others tonight, only those needed for the communion." At 12:30, the main doors open again. Reverend Walsh enters, followed by 4 members of the congregation I recognize from previous nights. They wear dark clothes with symbols stitched in silver thread, the same symbols on my badge. "Tyler," Reverend Walsh nods to me. "You've met Deacon Norris." "Yes, Reverend." "Good. Tonight's service is special, as I mentioned. A visitor has expressed interest in meeting you specifically." "Me? Why?" Reverend Walsh ignores my question. "The rules protect you, Tyler. Remember them." The group takes positions around the central tile, forming a pentagon. Reverend Walsh speaks in that strange language, his voice stronger than I've ever heard it. The others respond, their voices blending into a sound that makes my ears pop. The tile's glow intensifies. I grip my platform's railing, suddenly dizzy. The black stone in my pocket feels hot, even through my clothes. I don't know how long the chanting continues. Time feels slippery in the church, but especially tonight. Eventually, Reverend Walsh stops and looks directly at me. Our visitor approaches. What is offered cannot be reclaimed. What is promised must be delivered. The others echo, "What is promised must be delivered." The doors don't open this time. Instead, the air in the center of their pentagon folds. There's no other word for it. Like a piece of paper being creased, the space above the tile bends inward, creating an opening where there shouldn't be one. From this opening steps the same visitor from last night, the one with the forgettable face and the eyes I couldn't look at. They wear the same dark suit, still making no sound as they move. "We welcome you," Reverend Walsh says, bowing slightly. The visitor nods. "I have come for my answer." As promised, Reverend Walsh gestures to me, the one who carries debt beyond money. My body goes cold. The visitor turns to face me, and this time I can't look away from their eyes, dark pools that seem to go back forever, like staring down a well with no bottom. "Tyler Reed," the visitor says my name like they're tasting it. "Do you know what debt you carry?" My mouth is dry. I don't. "Your sister lives because others have died." The words make no sense, yet deep down I understand them perfectly. Maya's treatments, the experimental drug that's helping her recover, how did they develop it? Who were the test subjects before her? The visitor approaches my platform. Every instinct screams at me to run, but I'm frozen in place. "I collect debts," they continue. "Yours has come due." The tile changes color, from gray stone to deep red, like freshly spilled blood. Rule 4 kicks in. I fumble with the bag of salt, my fingers clumsy with fear. The visitor is at the steps of my platform now, reaching out with a hand that suddenly looks too long, the fingers tapering to points rather than normal fingertips. I pour the salt in a circle around myself, my hands shaking so badly I nearly spill it all in one spot. The visitor stops at the edge of my salt circle, head tilting like a curious bird. "A boundary," they say, sounding amused. How quaint. Reverend Walsh approaches, standing beside the visitor. The debt can be transferred, as we discussed. Another may take his place. The visitor's gaze remains fixed on me. The original debtor has flavor, but I will accept a substitute of equal value. Well, Tyler, Reverend Walsh asks, will you pay your debt, or shall another pay it for you? The question hangs in the air. If I step out of this circle, the visitor will take me. To where, I don't know, but I doubt I'd return. If I refuse, someone else pays in my place. Someone else disappears, like the guards before me. What happens if I pay this debt? I ask, playing for time. The visitor smiles, revealing teeth that are too white, too even. Your sister lives, your debt ends, the balance is restored. And if someone else pays? Your debt remains, it grows. Your sister's health fails, the balance demands correction. I think of Maya, finally improving after months of suffering. I think of the guards who disappeared before me. Were they offered the same choice? My hand closes around the black stone in my pocket, the one from the envelope. It burns against my palm, but I don't let go. Something tells me it's important. There must be another way, I say, looking at Reverend Walsh. His expression remains neutral. There is always another way, but all paths have a cost. What's the cost of this? I pull out the black stone. The reaction is immediate. The visitor hisses, taking a step back. Reverend Walsh's eyes widen. Where did you get that? He demands. It was in my payment envelope. You didn't put it there? Reverend Walsh glances at Deacon Norris, who shakes her head slightly. The visitor speaks, their voice now harsh, grating. A counterweight. Someone has interfered. I look down at the stone in my palm. It pulses with heat in time with the glowing tile, creating a rhythm like a heartbeat. Tyler, Reverend Walsh says carefully, that stone is dangerous. Hand it to me, and we can proceed as planned. But the visitor is still backing away, eyes on the stone. Something about their fear gives me courage. What does it do? I ask. It binds, the visitor snarls. It traps. It enslaves. Reverend Walsh takes a step toward my circle. Tyler, please, you don't understand what you're holding. I understand enough, I reply. It scares them, and anything that scares them is valuable to me. I squeeze the stone tighter and it grows hotter still. The pain is intense, but I don't let go. The visitor lets out a sound that hurts my ears, a high, thin wailing that makes the air vibrate. You cannot bind me, they cry. I am the collector. I am the balance. You are nothing here, says a new voice. We all turn. In the doorway stands a woman I've never seen before. She's older, with gray hair tied back in a braid, wearing what looks like a janitor's uniform. But there's nothing ordinary about the way she holds herself, or the light in her eyes. Vivian, Reverend Walsh whispers, sounding genuinely afraid for the first time. Hello, James, she replies, using his first name. Still playing with forces you can't control? She walks into the church, and I notice she doesn't avoid the doorframe like the rest of us do. She walks straight through, one hand trailing along the wood like she's greeting an old friend. The debt collector, she says, nodding toward the visitor. Been a while since one of you showed your face here. The visitor snarls at her. This is not your domain, Watcher. All thresholds are my domain, she corrects them. And you crossed mine when you touched my grandson last night. The young man from yesterday's service, the one the visitor spoke to. Her grandson? Vivian turns to me. The stone was a gift from my grandson. He knew you'd need it. Smart boy, even after your kind tried to steal his soul. She advances on Reverend Walsh, who actually backs away. You've perverted this place's purpose long enough, James. Churches are meant to protect people from creatures like your visitor, not invite them in. The covenant, Reverend Walsh begins, is broken, Vivian cuts him off, has been since you started sacrificing innocence to pay your own debts. She looks at me. The stone, boy. Throw it at the tile. I don't hesitate. I hurl the black stone at the glowing red tile in the center of the room. When they connect, light explodes outward. The visitor screams, a sound no human throat could make, as their body distorts. The opening above the tile reappears, but now it seems to pull rather than invite. The visitor claws at the floor, leaving gouges in the stone as they're dragged toward the opening. "No, no, no!" they shriek, their forgettable face melting away to reveal something underneath that my mind refuses to process. In seconds, they're gone, sucked into the opening, which snaps shut with a sound like a thunderclap. The church falls silent. Reverend Walsh and his followers stand frozen, as if waiting for judgment. Vivian walks calmly to the center, stepping on the tile, which has returned to its original gray color. "Tyler Reed," she says, "take off that badge and leave this place. Your debt is not what they told you. My sister will recover. Her illness was their doing, to bring you here." She gives Reverend Walsh a look that could curdle milk. "They've been recruiting for their covenant for years. Find the desperate, make them more desperate, then offer salvation at a terrible price." I rip the badge off, dropping it to the floor. "They made Maya sick? A slow-acting poison in your apartment water supply, designed to mimic autoimmune disease. The treatments are just the antidote, doled out to keep you coming back." Rage fills me, hot and cleansing. I step out of my salt circle and advance on Reverend Walsh. He doesn't move, doesn't try to escape. He just watches me with those ancient eyes. "Is it true?" I demand. He nods, a slight movement. "The covenant demands sacrifice. The visitor requires souls in debt. We facilitate the transaction. You poisoned my sister to trap me. We selected you. The debt was real, just not in the way you thought. Your military service, the lives you took. The visitor sensed it on you. I want to hurt him, to make him pay for what he's done to Maya, to me, to how many others." But Vivian places a hand on my arm. "Dawn approaches," she says. "This place won't be safe for you when the light comes. Your sister needs you." She's right. Maya needs me, and I need to get as far from this church as possible. I back toward the exit. Reverend Walsh watches me go, his face unreadable. "What will happen to them?" I ask Vivian. She smiles, and there's nothing kind in it. "The visitor will return, without your stone to bind it, without me to banish it, and it will find them in breach of covenant." Reverend Walsh pales slightly, but keeps his dignity. "We always pay our debts, Vivian." "Yes," she agrees. "You always do." I pass through the doorway, the first light of dawn brightening the eastern sky. Rule 5 enters my mind. Leave before the first light of dawn touches the church. Never look back once outside. This time, I break the rule. I turn and look back. For a moment, the church looks different, older, more grand, yet somehow wrong, like an image reflected in warped glass. Reverend Walsh and his followers are silhouettes inside, but their proportions seem off, their postures too still to be human. Then Vivian steps out beside me, and the illusion fades. All Saints looks like a normal church again. "Don't worry about your sister," she says. "I called an ambulance to your apartment before coming here. They'll find the source of the poison. She'll recover fully." "Thank you," I say, meaning it. "But why help me? Why now?" Vivian looks at the church, her expression complex. "I was the caretaker here once, before James and his cult took over. This was a place of genuine sanctuary. I've been waiting for the right person to help me reclaim it." "And that's me?" She smiles, a real one this time. "No, Tyler Reed. Your role was to break the covenant cycle. My grandson's role is to bind the visitor. And my role," she trails off, looking back at the church, "my role is to clean up this mess, once and for all." She pats my shoulder. "Go to your sister. Forget this place. Forget these rules." I know I should leave, drive straight to the hospital to find Maya, but I need to know. What will happen to them? To Reverend Walsh and the others? Vivian's smile fades. The visitor always collects, and with the covenant broken. She shrugs. The debt falls due to those who made the original promises. As if on cue, a scream erupts from inside the church, high, terrified, and abruptly cut short. I jerk toward the sound, but Vivian holds me back. Not your concern anymore. Go to your sister. This time I listen. I walk to my car without looking back again, the screams from the church fading as I put distance between us. By the time I start the engine, the church is silent. As I drive away, I glance in my rearview mirror just once. The rising sun illuminates All Saints, making the stained glass windows glow. It looks peaceful, ordinary. No one would ever guess what happens inside after midnight. I focus on the road ahead, on getting to Maya, on putting this all behind me. But I know I'll never forget the church that only opens after midnight, or the rules that kept me alive inside it. Some debts you pay in money, some you pay in blood, and some, like the debt Reverend Walsh owed, you pay in soul. I just hope Maya and I have paid ours in full.